Well, we're live. Hey there, hi there, ho there, guys. Welcome to the What's on Sports podcast. My name is John Todora, and I'll be your host today. Of course, joining me as always, my wonderful sidekick. We call him the sports nerd. Lance Fernandez is here. Lance, how are you, buddy?
Feeling positive, John. Super Bowl week finally. So we're just like 6 days away from the big game, and I cannot contain my excitement.
Yeah, I can feel that in you. You're not an overly excitable person, but when we talk about sports, you definitely pick it up a level or two. We are going to talk about the Super Bowl today. Excuse me. There's a lot of huge things happening out there. For those of you watching for the first time, excuse me. This is the What's on Sports podcast brought to you by the website What's on Sports. Lance is the head writer over at What's on Sports, so he does the double duty, and I just hang out and kind of host the show and talk about some cool stuff. I do want to tell you guys that are just tuning in for the first time that we do have a sponsor. Our sponsor is sportstradingsystems.com. That's sportstradingsystems.com. If you want to learn how to actually trade sports like other people trade stocks, I highly recommend you go over to sportstradingsystems.com. They're up 90% off of their initial bankroll from the beginning of basketball season. Now that's been fantastic. If you would put $1,000 in, you'd have $1,900 right now. Now, granted, it's not GameStop type of stock activity, but it's amazing investment that's diversified completely away from what is a crooked and a corrupt system that is the stock system. So guys, go over to Sports Trading System, learn how to invest, and have yourself a great time while you're doing it. Now, we're going to talk about some really good stuff today. Now, one of the first things that you and I want to talk about, and this is a debate that's been raging on, and it's who got the best of the Matthew Stafford trade. And for those of you out there in sports world that don't know what happened, Matthew Stafford was traded away from the Detroit Lions to the Los Angeles Rams in what is a blockbuster trade, a trade that we've never seen at this time of the year. I mean, before the Super Bowl even, I mean, this is just insane. And it's probably the first trade that I can remember, at least in my life, where you see the number one overall pick from one draft get traded for the number one overall pick from another draft. The Lions sent Matthew Stafford to Los Angeles. Los Angeles sends back Jared Goff, who's their starting quarterback. They also send back 2 first-rounders and a third-rounder for the rights to Matthew Stafford. Now, the debate has been raging on and on of who got the better deal in this trade, and I think I know, and I think you have an opinion as well. So let's find out what you think. Who got the best of this trade?
Yeah, before we continue, John, let's not forget that during last episode, you speculated that Matthew Stafford was worth just a second-round pick. And I was able to call that they would need any team that would get him would need a first-round pick to acquire the services of Matthew Stafford. But that's another issue. But I think in this deal, sometimes you just like to.
How did I know you're going to bring that up? Okay, you got one right last time, sports nerd. You got one right.
Sometimes you just have to point out once you're right because you're not right all the time. So I just have to put it out 100%. There in all of viewerland that I got this correctly. Anyway, so that's another matter. But I think that the Los Angeles Rams got the better end of the deal. Yes, they don't have future first-round draft picks, but they have a roster that is ready to win now. Yeah. And Sean McVay's system is organized for somebody like a Matthew Stafford to take over and just put it in the next level. Jared Goff is a talented quarterback, no question. But Sean McVay diagrammed his offense to have a quarterback just like a Matthew Stafford to put it to the next level, to put it into maximum heat, so to speak. And when you already have an offense like that with Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and of course the amazing Cam Akers from the backfield, plus an elite defense with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and the guys, who is number one in total yards given in the regular season, number one in the fewest passing yards given, and number one in points allowed at 18.5, then you could say that the offense wouldn't be the liability anymore. So you got firepower from both offense and defense. Plug in Matthew Stafford, and of course, the Rams can't wait for them to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I'll be really honest with you. I think both teams did great in this trade. This is one of the most fair trades I've ever seen. But if you're going to say the Rams got the best end of the deal, I could make an argument that the Lions got the best end of the deal, and there's a reason for that. If you look at the history of the Detroit Lions, this is a team that's had so many problems actually trying to keep superstars in town. And when they leave, they usually get nothing. Barry Sanders leaves, Calvin Johnson leaves, and nobody really ever really wants to stay there. But this time, Matthew Stafford says, I want to go. I want to go somewhere else. They trade Matthew Stafford away. They bring in another, in my opinion, very talented quarterback who did have a bad year last year. Was not, I take it back. Jared Goff did not have a bad year last year. He just didn't have a great year. But overall, when you line these guys up side by side, statistically, Jared Goff had an okay year. Jared Goff on the flip side doesn't have the arm strength that Matthew Stafford has. I don't think he has the overall arm talent that Stafford has as far as touch and the ability to be able to squeeze it in certain places and things like that. But I do believe that what they got in exchange was a quarterback who's not going to make the same kind of mistakes that Stafford does. Stafford's not afraid to try to gun the ball everywhere. And because of that, he does throw more interceptions. Goff doesn't throw as many interceptions. So you still have a starting quarterback that's starter worthy. So you could plug and play him right in where Stafford was. And in return, you get assets to try to build your team. You're looking at 2 first-rounders and a third-rounder. If you think about those and say, these aren't even our picks, I mean, to me, I'm a huge advocate for trading down. Take the first-round pick, turn it into a second and a third-round pick. Take the next first-round pick, either turn it into a good player or a second and third-round pick. You know, this is the ability, the flexibility, I should say, that Detroit has given themselves in doing this move. To me, is brilliant. This is 3D chess being played by a team that said, you know what, we have someone of value that doesn't want to be here. We don't want to just lose him. So instead, we're going to trade him away for someone that we can actually, some assets that we can actually use. So I think you're going to see a Jared Goff play decently well. I think you're going to see the Detroit Lions let some people go. They've got a lot of free agents, including like their entire starting wide receivers. They're going to let some of those guys go. They're going to rebuild through the draft with a brand new coach. And I believe the Detroit Lions are on the proper path to trying to build a winning team. Now, can they do it? I don't know about that. They have a history of not being a very good team. But let me ask you a question. When you think about the Rams right now, to me, this move for the Rams is, it's like you're looking at 2 separate teams doing the 2 separate strategies. The Detroit Lions take the trade that they trade because they're making a trade for, not really for the now, but really for the future. They're looking at 3 years from now, we're gonna be a good team. The Rams, on the other hand, are saying it's win now. We have a 2-year window with this defense. Do you see the Rams making any other types of big moves in the offseason? Is there anything else you could see them doing?
Well, I believe that the Rams is already done for the offseason, honestly, because I guess they all have the pieces in place. And we can all say something about the Lions going for the long-term game with all the assets and the draft picks. But we all know the risks involved when trying to draft new players. There's always 50-50, either a hit or a miss. So even though you have like 10 or 5 draft picks, if you miss on all of them, then chances are you wouldn't have a great team. So Detroit, yes, they do have the assets, but they must do well also in trying to find players that will do well in their system, in their newly created offense with Dan Campbell as their head coach. So they do have the means to get the new players, but they have to hit it. They have to hit in all of them in order for them to succeed.
Yeah, I think that's a problem for every franchise. You know, you can have as many draft assets as you want, but if your scouting department fails you, if your general manager isn't a good talent evaluator, if your coaches, suggest drafting players for want instead of need, or draft players for need instead of best available, I think you're always running into a situation where you can have as much draft capital as you want, and it doesn't help you. I really hope for the Detroit Lions. I've got some friends that are Lions fans. I really hope for the Detroit Lions and their fans they could turn it around. I think the NFC would be so much more interesting with a brand new team that is really, really a powerhouse. I hope Dan Campbell can put it together. When you go back to the Rams, though, I think the Rams have put themselves in a situation where it's literally a right now thing. They traded away 2 first-rounders for Jalen Ramsey. They traded away 2 first-rounders for Matthew Stafford. They're just not infusing that team with any young talent anymore. They're really missing out on the opportunities that keep being presented to them, which is bring in a young player on a cheap contract and see if he can play. For me, I think the most shocking part about the Rams, at least, is that the Rams are a team that is run by a young head coach that continues to bring in proven veterans. And what I mean by that is your younger coaches tend to usually like younger players because there's more of an age gap and there's more of a respect gap. You bring in Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are only a few years apart in age. Like those guys could have gone to high school together. So I'm a little concerned about that continuing to be the model there and McVay continuing to have the command he does over the team. I guess it's something to keep an eye on and take a look at it. But from my standpoint, I said I said the Lions, but I truly believe this is the most fair trade that I've seen in a very, very long time. I think both teams made out really, really well. If I had to make one more comment, I would just say that I think the Rams, obviously by what you brought up earlier, I think the Rams overpaid a little bit. But there is an argument to be made that if this is your quarterback, your franchise quarterback for the next 5 to 7 years, if this is the guy, then you'll pay anything to get him. So I guess I can go both ways on that. Now, there is a lot of different things happening in the NFL. We've got a lot of people saying they're going to be traded, a lot of teams needing quarterbacks. Indianapolis is in a rough situation now because I truly thought Indianapolis was going to be the location for Matthew Stafford. I thought it was a done deal. I thought all the Rams talk was just smoke and mirrors, and I was wrong. I admit it. Wrong twice last week about this. I was wrong about the one thing I said to you, and I was wrong about the fact that I thought the Rams were smoke and mirrors. So I don't know what the Colts are going to do for a quarterback, but I'll tell you one thing it's not going to be. It's definitely not going to be Deshaun Watson.